A career in emergency medicine. I mean, the source material we looked at calls it physically, emotionally, and mentally tough. And that feels right, doesn't it?
It really does. You, as the EM doctor or nurse practitioner, you're essentially the safety net for the whole health system.
Yeah, constantly dealing with the sickest patients, often, without all the information you'd ideally want.
Exactly. And the amount of knowledge you need just to progress clinically or for exams like RCUM or ACMM or the portfolio route, it's huge. It can feel, well, pretty daunting.
Almost impossible sometimes, trying to keep it all straight.
It's not just knowing it, though. It's about how fast you can pull it up when you need it.
Right. Getting it from the textbook page to the bedside, like instantly.
That specific challenge, the time it takes to go from learning something theoretically to actually using it perfectly under pressure, the sources call that the knowledge translation window.
The knowledge translation window, huh? That's a great way to put it. That gap between knowing and doing when things are hitting the fan.
Precisely. And today, we're really going to dive into a system designed to try and shrink that window.
Okay.
We're looking at the learning philosophy from the Memorizing Emergency Medicine project, MEM-EM.
Right.
And it's designed to work alongside official training resources, like RCEM learning here in the UK. It's actually mapped right to the RCEM 2021 curriculum, and it's got relevance for the ACM pathways in Australasia, too.
Okay, so let's unpack this. How does it propose we tackle this huge learning curve? What's the foundation?
Well, the core idea is built on tackling that translation lag. It uses two main evidence-based strategies, what they call the two-pronged approach.
Two prongs. Okay.
And what's interesting is that they straight up admit traditional medical training often falls short.
How so?
Well, if you only learn EM from books and lectures, that knowledge just sits there. It's kind of inert. It doesn't have those real-world triggers attached to it, the ones you need when you're stressed.
Okay, so the purely academic route isn't enough. But then the flip side, if you only learn from the cases you happen to see on shift.
Then you end up with massive gaps, potentially dangerous ones. You just haven't systematically covered everything you need to know from the curriculum.
Right. You might be great at managing ACS because you see it all the time, but miss something crucial about a rare endocrine emergency.
Exactly. So real mastery means you have to weave those two approaches together.
Okay.
Think of it like this. The systematic curriculum work, that's like the basic fabric of your knowledge and your clinical experience. That's the needle and thread. It stitches that fabric into something strong, something you can actually use.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So let's define the first prong then, the linear path. What does that look like?
So this is the structured bit, the predictable part. It's basically committing to working through the core curriculum topics systematically. Topic A, then topic B, then C.
Following the syllabus.
Pretty much. The big win here is you get comprehensive coverage. You're making sure all the basics, all the required stuff from, say, the RCEM curriculum gets covered. No fundamental gaps.
It builds that solid framework, that baseline knowledge you need to function safely.
Exactly. It's the foundation.
But hang on, if we just do that, just march through the curriculum linearly, aren't we back to that problem of inert knowledge? Stuff learned by rote that you can't recall under pressure.
That's the risk, yeah, if you only did the linear path.
So how do we make sure that foundational knowledge doesn't just stay stuck in the textbook?
Well, that's where prong 2 comes in, the nonlinear path.
Okay.
This is the messy part, the asynchronous learning. It's driven entirely by what you actually see and do on the shop floor, the challenging cases.
So, you deal with a really tricky sepsis case, maybe one that doesn't quite follow the textbook rules.
Right. And then the next day, or as soon as you can, you dive deep into sepsis again. You reread the guidelines, maybe look up some recent trials, focusing on the aspect that challenged you.
Learning driven by the immediate, sometimes difficult clinical reality.
That's it. And the key benefit here is much, much better retention. There's actual cognitive science behind this.
Oh, tell me more.
Deep learning sticks better when you connect the abstract facts to a personal, emotionally charged experience. The sources really hammer this point. Stories are vital in medicine.
Stories?
Yeah.
Meaning the memorable cases?
Yeah. Why? Because the emotion acts like a tag for the memory.
Okay.
Think about a really stressful resus, the environment, the sounds, maybe specific smells, the tough decisions you had to make. Those create incredibly strong retrieval cues in your brain.
Right, you remember those details vividly.
So when you then go back and review the academic stuff related to that case soon after, you're basically linking the dry facts to that powerful emotional memory trace.
Ah, I see. So the next time a similar situation arises, the stress itself might actually help trigger the recall of the knowledge because it's linked to that previous stressful emotional memory.
Precisely. It makes the information far more accessible when you're under the gun again.
Okay, so the linear path gives us the breadth, ensures we cover everything. The nonlinear path gives us the depth, the practical application, and crucially, the recall mechanism through that emotional connection. They work together.
Absolutely symbiotic. Linear builds the base, nonlinear cements it and makes it usable.
Makes sense. But is that it? Is mastering those two prongs enough to become a true expert?
Well, it gets you to a very high level of competence, definitely. But for long-term, deep expertise, the kind where things become almost intuitive, you need something more.
Okay.
You need structured, intentional repetition. And not just rereading your notes.
Right. Passive rereading isn't very effective, is it?
Generally, no. This is where the sources bring in the next key concept, the spiral approach.
The spiral approach. Okay, what's that about?
This is actually something the RCEM curriculum itself really emphasizes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The idea is you revisit core topics multiple times over your training and even throughout your career. But crucially, each time you revisit, you're aiming for a more sophisticated understanding.
So it's not just memorizing the same facts over and over.
No, not at all. It's about adding layers, building complexity.
Could you give an example?
Sure. Let's take, say, managing seizures in the ED. Your first pass, maybe early in training, you focus on the basic algorithm, the first-line drugs, status epilepticus definition.
Okay, the fundamentals.
Right. Then maybe 6 months or a year later, you spiral back. This time you focus on seizures in specific populations, pregnancy, alcohol withdrawal, pediatrics, or maybe you look at second and third line agents, or EEG interpretation basics.
Adding nuance and complexity.
Exactly. Then later still, you might revisit it again, focusing on, I don't know, the evidence around newer anti-epileptics or managing refractory status, or maybe even the social and driving implications.
So each pass builds on the last one, creating a deeper, more interconnected understanding.
That's the core idea. The sources say the goal is building the sophistication of knowledge, attitudes, and decision-making.
Sophistication. I like that word here.
It helps reinforce principles, it forces you to integrate knowledge across different clinical areas, and it really guides your development from just being a novice towards becoming a genuine expert.
So this intentional revisiting, this spiraling, that's what bridges the gap between just being competent, knowing the protocols, and achieving true mastery.
I think that's a fair way to put it. Competence is knowing the standard playbook for common things.
Like knowing the ATLS primary survey off by heart.
Right. But expertise, which the spiral approach helps build, is about navigating the unexpected, the messy, multi-system problems you see in resus. It's using instinct honed by repeated, deepening exposure. It's effectively blending that linear knowledge with the nonlinear experience refined over time.
It sounds much more like active skill development than just passive learning, which makes sense for EM given how dynamic it is.
Absolutely.
So, okay, we have the two-pronged approach, linear plus nonlinear, feeding into this spiral approach for deeper expertise. How does the MEM-EM project actually help clinicians do this? What are the practical tools, especially given how little study time most EM docs and NPs have?
Yeah, time is always the enemy, isn't it? The project tries to be very practical by mapping its resources directly to these different learning phases.
Okay, so for prong one, the linear approach, that systematic curriculum coverage, what tools do they offer?
For that foundational piece, they use things like their blogs, podcasts, and specific mapped resources. These are designed to walk you through the RCM requirements step by step, giving you that organized overview without getting bogged down in complex cases straight away.
Building the basic knowledge map first. Makes sense. Then for prong two, the nonlinear path, linking theory to practice, digging into those challenging cases.
That's where they bring in tools called deeper dives and case discussions. These focus specifically on tricky scenarios, maybe areas where the evidence is changing or there's controversy. Think about evolving sepsis guidelines or managing patients on new anticoagulants, that kind of thing.
Things where the standard textbook answer might not be enough.
Exactly. It forces you to apply that foundational knowledge to the gray areas, the ambiguities you actually encounter.
And then finally, the spiral approach, the repetition for mastery. How is that supported?
This really relies on active recall or retrieval practice.
Right, forcing yourself to pull the information out, not just reread it.
Precisely. So for this, they use interactive quizzes and flashcards, often using platforms like Quizlet.
Okay.
They talk about enabling rapid cycle deliberate practice, short bursts of testing yourself frequently. It's highly effective for strengthening those memory pathways, getting you ready for instant recall, whether it's for an exam or, more importantly, on the shop floor at 3 a.m.
That sounds like a really integrated system. But one thing we always have to consider in EM is the sheer amount of information out there, especially with hashtag foamed free open access medical education. How does this MEM-EM system ensure the quality and reliability of the content it's using?
That's a crucial point, and the sources address it. They state the content is rigorously referenced.
Okay.
So they draw from core EM textbooks, major journals, and also reputable hashtag FOAMed sources. They even mention using AI tools, interestingly, to help refine the material, make it clearer, more concise.
AI, really?
Yeah, and this is key. Everything is then checked, edited, and signed off by an experienced emergency medicine consultant, someone with specialty training experience in both the UK and Australasia, actually.
Ah, okay. So there's that human expert oversight ensuring clinical accuracy and relevance.
Exactly. It provides that quality control layer, ensuring it aligns with current best practices and has that broad applicability.
Well, this has been fascinating, a real deep dive into how we can potentially learn this incredibly demanding specialty more effectively. So just to recap, we've got the two-pronged approach, combining systematic linear study with that powerful case-driven nonlinear learning.
Right, the fabric and the stitching.
Yeah, I like that. And then feeding that into the spiral approach, using intentional active repetition like quizzes and flashcards to revisit topics and build that sophisticated expert-level understanding over time.
And we have to acknowledge again, it is a tough career. You're constantly facing uncertainty, high stakes, sick patients.
Definitely.
But the reward, the responsibility, it's immense. I love that quote they included describing the EM specialist role. You learn how to manage the best 4 hours of every other specialty.
That's brilliant. It really captures the breadth and immediacy of EM. Okay, so what does this all mean for you listening right now? We talked about how the nonlinear path, the learning from difficult cases, is supercharged by emotional connection, right? It tags the knowledge for recall under stress.
Yeah, the story makes it stick.
So if the linear learning builds the map and the nonlinear learning provides the memorable landmarks, think about this. What's the single most emotionally charged or difficult or just plain confusing case you've personally dealt with recently? Maybe just in the last week or month.
Take a moment to bring one to mind.
And here's the challenge, the final thought. Don't just mull over the case itself. Right now, or as soon as you can, consciously try to map that one specific difficult case back to the structured curriculum.
What were the core physiological principles at play? What specific guideline sections were relevant? Which knowledge gaps did it expose for you?
Use that single emotionally potent case as a hook. Pull maybe 2 or 3 related linear topics from the curriculum back into focus because of that case. Could doing just that right now immediately help accelerate your own path from competence towards real expertise?